मुच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः।
श्री कृष्णाय नमः। श्री गोपीजन वल्लभाय नमः। श्रीमद् आचार्य चरण कमलेभ्यो नमः। श्री गुसाई जी परम दयालवे नमः। श्री गुरवे नमः। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। नमो भगवते तस्मै कृष्णायाद्भूतकर्मणे रूपनाम विभेदेन जगत्क्रीडति यो यतः। बुद्धिप्रेरक कृष्णस्य पादपद्मं प्रसीदतु ध्यानासमर्थ जीवानामस्माकं सर्वदा स्वतः। प्रभुर्नंदकुमारो में स्वामिनी वृषभानुजा कृतार्थोहम 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 न संशयः। ज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। पुष्टिमार्य सर्वज्ञः करुणारसपूरितः श्रेष्ठफलप्रदाता च तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। सच्चिदानन्दरूपाय विश्वोत्पत्त्यादिहेतवे तापत्रय विनाशाय श्रीकृष्णाय वयं नमः। कृष्णं वंदे जगद्गुरुं। Welcome back to the series of Life Solutions in 2021, a Vedic lifestyle. I would like to thank Prempuri Ashram for organizing this wonderful series, and at the same time would like to thank Girish Bhai Magan Bhai Dresswala for being such a sweet personality, for inviting a person like me to this particular web series. Over here, today, we'll try and focus on the scientific aspect of creation of this world. And at the same time, we'll also try and focus on how science and religion are synchronized with each other and how science is a part of religion. Jnanam paramaguhyam me yad vijnana samanvitam. This is something that has been mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam Chatushloki. Gnan, knowledge. A small factor is Vignan, the science, which is a part of that very much segment called Gnan. We have heard a lot about theory of creation, theory of evolution, the Big Bang theory. Now let's try and understand the scientific aspects. There were two particles that collided against each other, and eventually the universe was created. Fair point. There was a process. In the atomic world, we might have learned it under the concept called as fusion and fission. Now, there were atoms. These atoms collided against each other, or these elements collided against each other. And there was a huge blast, and the world was created. This is what we have learned in the Big Bang theory. Similarly, a scientific theory has been propounded by Stephen Hawking as well, which is far more accepted. I would like to quote one of the most formidable and learned scholars in the Pushti Sampradaya and in the Vedic Sanatan Dharma. Goswami 108 Shri Shyam Manohar Ji Maharaj Shri. I was astonished and proud at the same time that someone in Pushti Marg was actually talking about theory of causation. And that too, the theory of causation was being conversed in English. When an Acharya of such caliber is talking about theory of causation in English, one of the major moments arise is that someone is thinking such topics for the modern generation. Mind you, Apshri is about 80 years old, maybe more than 80 as well, but has been interacting with the youngsters in the longest duration of time. Once I got a chance to understand the theory of causation through his video series, and one of the most formidable statements that he made: one theory of creation is not enough to justify the theory of causation. When multiple theories put together, even if contradictory in nature, they can give you some perspective about theory of causation. Having said this, I would like to quote the Upanishad, which says, Brahmashreya sattva rajas tamo gunatmika maya asti tata akashah sambhutah akashad vayuh vayuh agnih agnehe apah adbhyah prithvi. I have quoting the Upanishads currently. Those are one of the concepts that have been propounded in the Tattva Bodha. Looks like it's a Shankar Vedanta version of it. But similarly, Taittiriya Upanishad, Brahmananda Valli, Prathamonvakaha mentions something like this: Tasmad eva etasmad akashah sambhutah akashad vayuh vayor agnih agnerapah adbhyah prithvi prithivya aushadayah aushadibhyonnam aushadibhyo annam annat purushah sava esha purushon narasamayah tasya devameva shirah ayam dakshina pakshah. All of these have been mentioned in the Taittiriya Upanishad. All of these have been mentioned in the Taittiriya Upanishad. And it has been extremely helpful for us to understand how this entire theory of creation has been propounded in our scriptures. So first of all, there was nothing. The Brahman was the only existing thing. Brahma was the only existing element. Brahma feels like reproducing or recreating itself because Sa ekaki na ramate sa dvitiyam echat. Again, Upanishads saying this. The element was alone, element wanted to play, and hence, in order to have that gamification going on, it created itself, sa dvitiyam echat. And that's how this entire universe got created from Akashaha. So the first thing that comes out of those two particles which collide against each other, and they, and then there's a huge blast, and the first thing that comes out is Akashaha, refers to the sky or the space. Akashad Vayuhu. Vayuhu refers to all the gases, all the inert and the normal form of gases. Vayor Agnihi, that refers to the fire. From fire comes the water. Agner Apaha. And from Apaha, that's the water, comes Adhyah Prithvi. That means the earth. So if we go and see, the sky is limitless. Lesser than the sky is the gases, because there's also vacuum that has been present in the skies. After the gases comes the water, comes the fire. We can see fire elements across a lot of planetary bodies, not just Earth, which hardcore is nothing but lava and magma. However, the others as well. Now moving forward, from the Agni comes the water. Irony, right? But yeah, this is how it is. First the Agni and then the water. Now this water, if you go and see, Earth has plenty of water. And there is water across other planets as well. At least they are attempting to find it. And moving forward comes the Prithvi Tattva, which is the last Tattva. Now, a lot of people say that the living beings were made first. Humans were made first or animals were made first. However, the Dharma Shastra or the Upanishad says no. Prithivya Aushadayah. First the Aushadhis were made, Vanaspatis were made. Once the Aushadhi is made, from the Aushadhis, if you go and see, Aushadibhyo Annam, that refers to even before the mankind was made, the elements that are going to be helpful for him to exist in this world, the food is already made. It's prepared. It's ready. It's pretty much there. And that's why it is said Anna. And from Anna comes the Purusha. Purusha refers to the mankind over here. Now, isn't this beautiful? Isn't this wonderful? We have been talking about humans getting involved from some stupid monkeys. I don't know how. There have been scientific processes. But then I just have one question. What is the Gotra doing in our family name? What is the role of Gotra? If I come from Vatsas Gotrotpannoham, Vatsas Chavana Aura Apnuan Jamadagniti Pancha Pravaran Vitaha Shukla Yajurvedantargata Vajaseni Madhyandini Shakhadhyainaha Aditya Sharmaham. That's how we introduce ourselves. And by the way, this is the exact mechanism of how you should introduce yourself in front of your Acharya, your Guru, your Kulupurohitaha, the visiting Brahmanaha, your parents, your teachers. You're supposed to cross your hands like this and then says Vatsas Gotrotpannoham. That refers to you reciting your Gotra. My Gotra is Vatsas. Your could be Kashyap. Your could be Ratithar. Your could be Vasishtha. Any form of Gotras you might have. Vatsas Gotrotpannoham. What is next? Vatsas Chavana Aura Apnuan Jamadagni Tipancha Pravaran Vitaha. Your Pravar. Which are the other Rishis that come over there? Are you a Tripravar? Are you a Panchapravar? How many Rishis are there in that particular lineage? Then, which Ved are you from? So, Shukla Yajurvedantargata. My Ved is Shukla Yajurvedaha. Do you have a Shakha? Absolutely yes. Because Ved also has different bifurcations. Kanva and Madhyandini. And hence, Vajaseni Madhyandini Shakhadhyainaha. So yeah, I come from the Shakha of Vajaseni Madhyandini. I'm sorry, I come from the Madhyandini Shakha. Today it's slightly hustly bustly because I'm trying to gather my thoughts. I want to be extremely calm and composed when I'm conveying this session with you guys. I'll try my level best. So, Shakha. Okay, now you have the Gotra, you have the Pravar, you have the Veda, you have the Shakha. What else? What is your name? Aditya. You could have your own name. And then, what kind of caste do you belong to? Sharmaham refers to I'm a Brahman. If you're a Kshatriya, you would say Varmaham. If you are a Vaishya, you would say Guptaham. If you are a Shudra, you would say Dasoham. So that's the beauty. We plot ourselves against the lineage that we come from. On one side is the source of that lineage, and on the other side is our life, is where we are, is where we stand. Now, a lot of people may say, but what if I don't know who's my source? What if I don't know my Gotra? What if I don't know anything about my family tree? Fair point. You are being allocated with a Gotra called as Kashyapa. Why Kashyapa? Because all the mankind that have been, who don't have a Gotra, has been offered or gets connected with Kashyap. Kashyap Rishi has done a lot of creation through his multiple wives, including Diti and Aditi. That's gods and goddesses come from Aditi, and Diti has all the Rakshasas, Asuras, etc. etc. So yeah, that's how the creation of the world has taken place, and how it has a parallel understanding with the science that we all carry in life. I hope this might have helped you understand how Upanishads have already thought about the theory of creation, even before, when we could not even imagine how would life exist on this planet Earth. Now, having said that, let's try and understand the various aspects of science that are evidently present in so many other scriptures. Let's talk about science that has connections with astronomy, first of all. Astronomy and astrology allows us to have an understanding of the planetary movements and how they can impact life. Enough people prior to this have spoken about the distance between the earth and the sun, the earth and the moon, how eclipse is being made by change in movements between the sun, earth, and the moon, how the moon comes in between the sun and earth, and how there can be a solar or a lunar eclipse over a period of years. Apparently, there is one right now which is going to implement in some days, and we, at least people in Maharashtra, Gujarat, need not be worried about. We shouldn't be worried about it, as we are not going to have any implication of those eclipse. However, people in the northeastern states, Arunachal Pradesh and all of those, they will be impacted with that eclipse. So all your astronomical affairs of Mangal, Shani, Rahu, Ketu, Surya, Chandra, Bruhaspati, they have been plotted in astronomy and at the same time have astrological implications in our life. Yuga Sahasra Yojana Parabhanu. We are aware of how Tulsikrut Ramayana has also spoken about the distance between the segments. Similarly, when it comes to science, I would like to applaud the Vedic lifestyle and the various aspects of Vedic lifestyle which have scientific reasoning, for which I would also like to quote an author. This is the book. It says Kyon. Kyon has been written by a wonderful author. His name is Kisan Lal Sharma, and this is the photo of Mr. Kisan Lal Sharma. Why am I showing you this book? Because at least this book is in Hindi and will give you an understanding of why and how your lifestyle is functioning. For example, a lot of people talk about science in our religion, and there have been enough research papers that have been taken place. We'll try to consider them right now in this particular lecture and move forward. Now, let's try and understand the various implications of science in our religious segment. I'm sorry, I'm a little distracted because I'm getting a lot of calls, unfortunately. Kindly bear with my inconsistency in speaking today. The first thing that you can start with is the food and the consumption pattern that we all have. Now, ahar, bhojana, prasadha. These are the various terms that we use. Ahar is something that we have as an intake. Bhojana is particularly lunch. And prasadam or prasada. Prasada is a name. Prasadam is what we partake after offering to the Lord. Apparently, our culture has propounded minimalistic diet. If you go and listen to the Yogi Purush or people who believe in yoga, they say whatever fits in this particular hand is ideally the size of your stomach, and that is exactly the amount of food you need to consume. Is exactly the amount of food that you need to consume. Having said that, our Vedic diet was a pretty sorted, balanced diet because of certain reasons. We all come from a Sanskriti which is Vanas Sanskriti, a forest-based Sanskriti. Why? Because the land had a lot of forests and it was abundant with natural beauty and bounties. We had ample land, and because of that, agriculture was also possible. So we never faced crop-based issues, or we never faced issues in terms of things that are available in the forest itself. Let me simply quote you certain things. First thing, crops. Since people had land, and Bharat has an amazing land, unfortunately, due to pesticides and chemical sides, all the green revolution has already corroded the land. However, in South India, there are a lot of initiatives undertaken in order to improvise the fertilization situation in India. And they are utilizing extremely natural factors. For example, back in the days, we used animal fertilizer or cow dung as a fertilizer. With that, rivers, irrigation was also pretty much there because the entire Sanskriti was based around the rivers. Maybe the Ganga, Yamuna, Sindhu, Godavari, Narmadi, Tapi. The civilization was around rivers. Rivers were not only just considered as goddess, but a major source of civilization as well. Reason being, Kashi is considered to be one of the oldest cities present in the mankind and universe, and Ganga has been an evident place where Kashi has made its own residence. And we all know how wonderful the land is around Ganga. Third, scientific implications of various aspects in our lifestyle. We had abundance in milk, and hence lactose intolerance was never a concept which actually took place. But we are thankful to the Westerner that it has now been accepted in our Indian ecosystem as well. Since there were cows at the house, having doodh, dahi, ghee, makhan, all of these aspects were extremely easy because there were cows at our house. And since cows were at our house, we could also get two things. First one is gobar, the cow dung, and the second is gaumutra. That's the urine of the cow. If you study the traditional or primitive mechanisms of Indian lifestyle, there were houses applied with cow dung because cow dung based houses had the tendency of keeping the house cool. And this same particular cow dung was being utilized as cakes to be the source or to be the fuel in the Yagna Samskriti as well. Next factor that we need to understand is the water. Since there were no taps, since science was not that evolved, there was a practice of going to the nearest water body, gather water from those sources, and keep it in a utensil which is in the corner of the house. No sunlight is trying to have a match on it. And at the same time, no one is hovering around it. Because if you drink water directly from the tap and you consume it, the constituency of the water is absolutely the same. It's H2O only. But the inner particles have seen so much movement that it's actually not beneficial for our health to drink such kind of water. On the other side, the lifestyle that we had allowed water to stay calm, to be composed over the night. And next day morning, we would insert a utensil to take some water out of it and pour it in another glass. We would let that glass sustain for a while. And then water was being drunk slightly above the lips. It was not being drunk so above. Like such great height was not there. Just above. Reason being, air can also start going in our mouth, and hence the reason is you shouldn't be drinking water from so top. You should be having some limited amount of distance. And why we never touched utensils? So that our germs are not applied on those vessels. That's why water vessels were generally consumed from a height. In Gujarati, we call this Etu Jutu. A calm and composed water was being utilized to drink. It was not directly like an aquaguard was being utilized. This is something that we need to know. Water that is calm, water that is composed, is far beneficial in comparison to running water. That's the reason when we are at the riverfront, we pray, we respect, we give our prostrates to the river. However, we don't just start drinking water from it directly. We take it in the vessel, we let it calm for a while, and then consume water. That's how it has been. That's the mechanism behind consuming water. Similarly, hydration is not a new concept. Modern day nutritionist people are talking about consuming 3 liters of water, 2.5 liters of water. Some people are even talking about 4 liters of water. In the Vedic way of lifestyle, after your Deha Krutya is done, that means your brush, your excretion process, and your snan is done, and you have the possibility of performing your own, what do we say, spiritual and religious activities. Within the first hour, within the first 1 hour of waking up, you are supposed to consume water. Some people even recommend before going to the washroom, you're supposed to consume water. However, that's not a practice in a lot of houses because we don't tend to eat or drink something until unless we have taken the bath and we've prayed and offered our devotion to our spiritual masters. Even water, which needs to be consumed before food, is good because it helps you cleanse your body. Water that is consumed during the lunch is helpful so that if anything is stuck, you can partake it, you can consume it. But water being consumed after the food is done is actually like poison. It reduces the intensity of fire which is there in your udara, that is your stomach, and hence your digestive system gets affected if you consume water after lunch. Similarly, back in the days, we had something called as jhari, Jhari. Jhari used to be a two-faced vessel, a bigger mouth so that you can pour water, and a smaller mouth so that you can consume water easily. It's called a double-faced pitcher or a dual-faced pitcher. In our Sanskrit, it is said Dvishuchi Patram, Shuddham. Whenever a vessel has two faces, it is considered to be Shuddha, and it becomes easy for someone to consume water through it because the second face is really small. So even if you drink it from the top, there's a small downfall of water that's coming to your mouth. It's not like a humongous Niagara Falls that's coming in your mouth. A lot of people don't have a judgment when they consume some glass like this. The entire water can come out. However, when the outlet is really small, it becomes easy for someone to consume as well. I think I was in 5th standard or 6th standard. Once Golokwasi Pradyumna Shastri ji, and maybe after a year, Golokwasi, my grandfather, Sri Niranjan Shastri ji, had gone to Mumbai University for a lecture. They were delivering sessions on Vallabh Vedanta at that given point of time. Maybe it was the same year or maybe it was a year after. As a general tendency, you offer water. I remember they removing their shoes and having that water as a mark of respect because they were consuming water. And hence it is said, Jalam eva Jivanam. Water is life. Let's move further. Now let's try and understand what are the various other aspects in context with science in our religion or in our Vedic lifestyle. Let's talk about the breathing mechanism, pranayam. Pranayam is something that is common. We have heard about it since ages. As a yogi, as a yogic person, there are things like yam, niyam, asan, pranayam. There is also pratyahar. Now, pranayam is not just rhythmic breathing. Pranayam doesn't refer to control on breath. Pranayam has deeper meanings. It has multiple formats to ensure that the way we breathe can also help our various organs, can also help our circulation of oxygen, can also help the pumping of heart. All of these factors are interconnected. We all are aware about Kumbhak, Purak, and Rechak. But let me tell you something about prana. You are supposed to practice controlling your prana for a longer lifestyle so that your shallow breathing can be taken care of. An average human being can breathe up to 16 or 18 times in a minute. However, a tortoise is only breathing about 4 times in a minute. A lot of times when we are breathing, either we are not breathing out of our own noses, we are breathing out of our mouth. And second, even if we are breathing, our breath is only going till the lungs. Possibly it's not affecting our stomach. Or our breath is so shallow that it's not fulfilling our needs in the entire body. When such things are happening, we need to understand that we need a mentor, or we need a guru, or we need a yogi purush who can help us work on our breathing system. See, remember one thing, we are not marathon runners who have been running 40 kilometers or 10 kilometers in a day's time. We are a nation that comes from a lot of hard work and hardships through our own daily activities. For example, cooking, cleaning, cutting, farming, fishing, walking miles. We never needed some additional time to do any of these fitness activities apart from doing yoga and asana. Now remember one thing, yoga just doesn't refer to the asanas. Yoga is not just those Matsyasana and Karmasana and all of these Shavasana and all these asanas that you are performing. No, asanas are a part of yoga, and yoga has a better output. Yoga is actually in yujyate iti yoga. That's reconciliation with your own self is considered to be yoga. And first of all, it's yoga, not yoga. Stop saying yoga. Please, it's yoga. It's Krishna, not Krishna. Not Krishna. It's Krishna. It's yoga. Arjuna, Dhananjaya, Bhagavata, Vyasa, Shukadeva. Just because some lunatic or weirdos have been saying Shukadeva, Vyasa, Arjuna, Dhananjaya, Krishna, you're not supposed to replicate them. Those people cannot pronunciate a lot of things in their life. That's the reason they pronounce things in that particular way. We know our pronunciation pretty well. Stop being British, stop being American, stop being Australian, be Indian, be logical Indian. And that's what yoga is all about. That's what pranayama is all about. Your breath can actually help you achieve a good hygiene for your own self. It can help you overcome your breathing issues. Pranayama can help you overcome a lot of other lung-based diseases that we face every now and then. And thanks to the vid that has come into our life these days, we have been masked, and one of the major reasons why we are not worried, so that the germs don't go inside us. Let us talk about something called as turmeric. Turmeric as an element was deeply rooted with Indian origins, and some Westerner in US claimed that turmeric has antiseptic qualities, and they created a patent. They created a patent, and because of that, a major fight took place between India and US. With the simple reason, whenever our moms get hurt in the kitchen, they apply haldi like this. And since they are applying haldi like that, formidable Padma Shri laureate Raghunath Rao Mashelkar, Dr. Raghunath Rao Mashelkar, was formidable to find the implications of turmeric in our lifestyle through the various scriptures present and ensured that this research paper was presented against the intellectual property authorities, and US had to withdraw their claim that they found turmeric to have antiseptic qualities. So just because someone is giving you a turmeric latte doesn't mean that haldi ka doodh is bad. In the world of Starbucks, don't miss out on certain things that are quite original. Despite Starbucks being great, our certain drinks are absolutely good. Having said that, let's try and understand the concept. When I was a kid, even I wondered what can science do to religion, or what could religion do to science. It's only when I started talking to youngsters in my Jiju's Institute and I realized how science that we have learned or history that we have learned in our school days is so biased towards the Western concept. We never focused on the original Indian theories that come by. Let us see what kind of contribution we as a society has done to science, has done to culture, has done to art, has done to literature. Let's start with something called as Navy. The word naval comes from the word nav. Nav refers to a boat, and that's how the Navy came to existence. A game called as Ashtapadi, which is known as chess, was also originated in India. Some people talk about snakes and ladders. Even Sapsidi was a concept which was there during the era of Dayaramji, the Bhakta Kavi Dayaram, because he had created his own Sapsidi. At least we Pushti Marga Vaishnavas know about that. Talking about Sangeet, despite other countries have their own musical elements and musical systems, the Saptak was something that was introduced in our own land, and we have been listening about various musical instruments even in the Vedic era. Srimad Bhagavatam 10th canto, Vichitrani Vadintrani, has a mentioning about that as well. The musical instrument called Pakhavach is also called as a Ganesh Vadya or a Deva Vadya because Sri Ganesh Ji was the one who had played that instrument during his time and tenure. Talking about Shushruth, Shushruth has been a fundamental person who has contributed to surgery even when tools were not being introduced, and he could perform, transplanting of skin and packaging it pretty well. And some people even say plastic surgery roots are also there with Shushruth, but some more research needs to be done about it. But Shushruth is one of the most formidable leaders who has contributed to modern surgery. Talking about in context with science, Jantar Mantar and all of these places where we can see the time is being calculated on the basis of the sun and the moon's presence. The sun's light falling on those devices can actually help you calculate the time. With that, I came to know that Bombay and Jaipur have a difference of 4.5 minutes, or 4.5 minutes. So yeah, Bombay is 4 minutes ahead or 4 minutes in time, whereas Jaipur is 4 minutes after in time because of the longitude and the latitude differences that we all carry. Apart from that, atoms, if we are aware of Parmanu and Anu and Parmanu theories were being propounded in India, in Bharatvarsh itself. Ganit Shastra, Pythagoras theorem, or may it be the Bhugol Shastra, or may it be the invention of zero done by Aryabhatta, has also been one of the prominent segments that have been there in the Indian segment. India has been one of the major contributors when it comes to the scientific segment too. Apart from that, even when world was wondering, can there be airplanes? Gautam Rishi had a Viman, Ravan had a Viman, various gods and goddesses had their own Vimans. So flying was something which was pretty common. A lot of people talk about time gauge. Apparently 10 raised to minus 7 and 10 raised to 22. Despite having no calculators or no calculus, particularly, we know the time bifurcation between 10 raised to minus 7 and 10 raised to 22. So it goes as to विष्णोराज्ञया प्रवर्तमानस्य दश्री ब्रह्मणः द्वितीय परार्धे श्वेतवाराह कल्पे सप्तमे वैवस्वतमन्वन्तरे अष्टाविंशतितमे कलियुगे कलिप्रथम चरणे भूर्लोके जम्बूद्वीपे भरतखंडे भारतवर्षे आर्यावर्तांतर्गत ब्रह्मावर्तिक देशे. So if you go and see, whenever you're doing any sankalpa at that particular point of time as well, the time ganana is given. For example, there is a kalpa, there is a parardha, there is a yuga, there is a charana, there is a varsha, there is a mas, there is a paksha, there is a ayan, then there is the divas, then there is the part of the day that we call it as prahar. Then either it's a madhyana, sayan, aparan, pratah. Then there is ghatika, that is the hour, and then there are bifurcations of those as well. So science in terms of time has also been one of the major factors that have been contributory from the Indian segment. Absolutely, yes. Apart from that, Bhugol and Khagol, that has been a situation in Bhagavatam Srimad Canto 5. For a matter of fact, there is a book published by ISKCON which talks about cosmology in Srimad Bhagavatam. One should definitely read that, and we can get an idea how various dweepa, Krauncha Dweep, Jambu Dweep, all these 7 types of dweep, Shalma Dweep, and all these dweeps have come into existence, and where are they located particularly? How the universe, how this earth was one land and it got bifurcated into 2 or 7 parts eventually. One of the major formidable stories that come in Srimad Bhagavatam particularly. Apart from that, the warfare was also one of the major things, because archery and all of these were originated from something called as Dhanurvidya particularly. So the warfare was pretty much there. If we go and see concepts like Kala, that's time, Avkash, that is space, Karan, that is causation, Gati, that's motion, Kalavadi, that's duration, Dravya, that's mass, Samarthya, that's force, Sapeksha, that's relative, Nirpeksha, that's absolute, Swatantra, that's significance. All of these things have pretty much been existing into our segment since ages and time. If we try and understand what are the various aspects that have been covered in our religious segment, we need to definitely go through the scientific research done by various other scholars, which help us understand what and how science can have an implication. For example, the cosmos and the movements of various celestial bodies within without any particular equipment, how it sets itself in motion, memories of previous birth, attestation to the theory of birth or rebirth, and how memory can play a role despite your body getting transferred over the period of time. For example, how certain things don't need any fuel and it can play itself. For example, the Veena of Naradji had the sound which could emit by itself. No one need to do anything. For example, we might have also seen the movie Bahubali, and we saw that instead of one arrow, three or four arrows were being shot at one time. So how multiple arrows can also be utilized in the warfare. These were also certain things that were being taught. Sociology was a major concept which is there in the religious segment. Apart from that, civilization. If we go and see Hiranyakashipu's story, when Hiranyakashipu started attacking all the gods and goddesses, Hiranyakashipu started destroying bridges so that food can get stopped. Food cannot enter the city. He started destroying towns. He started destroying agricultural lands so that food cannot be made. civil engineering architecture as a concept, or there are religious papers. There have been enough research material, even the Haveli construction that takes place in the Pushti Margiya segment, that has wonderful civil engineering work. Vishwakarma, who created the temple of Dwarka, was itself an intact example of how Vishwakarma has built it. Similarly, the novel factors that take place in the Jagannath Ji temple, that uh, the 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 dwaja is actually in a different direction of the, what do we say, of the wind. That is also pretty fascinating. If you go and see how Satya Yug, Treta Yug, Dwapar Yug, and Kali Yug, the time duration of those have been calculated, and how a theory of evolution takes place from gold to silver to copper to steel and to maybe the plastic that we are living in this particular site. Surrogacy was a major concept that a lot of people talk about in the current era, and Mahabharata has been an epitome of surrogacy, because how can you give birth to 100 people at one time, if we can imagine that? Talking about the science aspect, which we spoke in the yesterday's class about the yagna and how yagna actually contributes in purification of air, we have already spoken about in the previous segment. How a transplant can take place of an embryo, and that's what we understand from Balram's uh, birth, that he was transferred from Devaki to Rohini. I'm sorry, yeah, from Devaki to Rohini, and Rohini gives birth to Balramji eventually, and that's how an embryo is also being transplanted over the period of time. Moving forward, how despite not having any X-ray machines, Srimad Bhagavatam also denotes how a sperm gets converted into an egg to a baby, and the embryo grows, and how the baby gets delivered over the period of time. So those aspects are also pretty much intact. Talking about water conservation, Govardhan Leela talks about how, despite being a major rain, how Lord utilized his own Shankha, Panchajanya Shankha, to actually source the entire water back so that there's zero wastage of water. Sexual transformation is definitely a concept which has been there, wherein someone who desired to be a to be a to be a son eventually became daughter, from daughter became son, and the vice versa took place multiple times. And after a point of time, that particular person had to change sex every 6 months because of the curse that was there in the forest because of Shiva and Parvati. Dance, art, and music has been a major concept. Nothing new about it. We have already spoken about it. Wrestling and energy units, we've gone through that too. And apart from that, the hypothesis of evolution that we understand from the Dashavatar story, that it started from a Matsya to a Kurma to a Varaha, and eventually moves to Nrsimha, Vamana, Parshurama, Rama, Krishna, and then comes the Buddha and the Kalki eventually, right? So the evolution has been one major point take which has been considered in the religious segment. Apart from that, various other factors which have been contributing, how mantra vidya can impact people, how the hymns have a positive vibration, and how sounds of hymns can actually impact your positivity of lifestyle. Well, all these factors definitely play an important role. And with having said that, let's try and conclude this scientific topic today. Thank you so much for being a patient audience. Shubham Bhavatu. Krishna Arpanamastu.
Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.